How are you guys doing? Today is Wednesday, April 14th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Tuesday, April 13th. And of course, I'm going to preview everything we got going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Of course, starting with the NBA, looking at last night's primetime performances. Starting off in Indianapolis, the Indiana Pacers hosted the Los Angeles Clippers as Paul George got a chance to face off against his former team. And the Los Angeles Clippers were able to win this matchup 126-115, the big difference being the fourth quarter where they outscored the Pacers by 8. For the Indiana Pacers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard, Malcolm Brogdon, who finished with 29 points and 5 rebounds in 36 minutes as he shot 12 for 18 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their starting shooting guard out of Michigan, Karis LeVert, would finish with 26 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in 36 minutes as LeVert shot 7 for 18 from the field and 11 for 13 from the foul line. And then also in the starting lineup, their all-star power forward, Domantas Sabonis, would finish with 20 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 assists in 37 minutes as he shot 9 for 17 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the day, so he was 1 for 1 from there. For the Los Angeles Clippers, their leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard and former Indiana Pacer, Paul George, who finished with 36 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals, alongside 5 turnovers in 38 minutes, as he shot 13 for 25 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the line. And their starting small forward, Marcus Morris Sr., would finish with 22 points and 7 rebounds in 30 minutes, as he shot 9 for 12 from the field, a perfect 3 for 3 from the three-point line, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Los Angeles Clippers are now 38-18. That is the third best record in the Western Conference, as they have now won their last 6 games. That is the best winning streak in the NBA as of right now. They've won 8 of their last 10 games. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they now sit 2 games behind the second-place Phoenix Suns, and they now sit 3 games ahead of the fourth-place Denver Nuggets as they trail the Utah Jazz by 3.5 games in the Western Conference. Looking out to the other big game from last night, jumping out to Portland, the Portland Trailblazers hosted the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics would win this game 116-115. In the middle quarters, they would go on to outscore Portland by 13, which would be the difference. And for the Portland Trailblazers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard out of Weber State, Damian Lillard, who finished with 28 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists, alongside 5 turnovers in 37 minutes. As he went on to shoot 9 for 23 from the field, he would also shoot 5 for 13 from 3 and 5 for 6 from the foul line. Off the bench, their future Hall of Fame power forward, Carmelo Anthony, would finish with 25 points in 28 minutes as he shot 10 for 15 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. And then their starting small forward that they recently acquired from Toronto, Norman Powell, would finish with 20 points in 38 minutes as he shot 8 for 15 from the field and 4 for 8 from 3. For the Boston Celtics, their leading scorer would be their lead starting small forward out of Duke, Jason Tatum, who finished with 32 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists in 38 minutes, as Tatum shot 10 for 17 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 8 for 10 from the foul line. Their all-star starting shooting guard, Jalen Brown, would finish with 24 points in 40 minutes as he shot 9 for 21 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line, as he also finished with 4 rebounds and 2 assists for himself as well. And their elite starting point guard, Kemba Walker, would finish with 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists in 36 minutes, as Kemba would shoot 7 for 17 from the field, 4 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 29-26. That is the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won their last 4 games. They've won 7 of their last 10. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they now trail the 4th place Atlanta Hawks by a game, and they now sit half a game ahead of the 6th place reigning Eastern Conference champions Miami Heat. And as a whole, the Celtics now sit 8.5 games behind the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets, currently sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference. With this loss, the Portland Trailblazers are now 31-23. That is the sixth best record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost their last 2 games. They've won 5 of their last 10. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they trail the 5th place defending champs Los Angeles Lakers by 2.5 games, and they now sit a game and a half ahead of the 7th place Dallas Mavericks, as they trail the Utah Jazz by 9.5 games in the conference. Outside of the primetime matchups, looking out to Florida, the Toronto Raptors hosted the Atlanta Hawks, as the Hawks were able to pick up a 108-103 win. The difference would be the second quarter, where they outscored the Raptors by 11, but other than that, every quarter was roughly close. For the Raptors in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting power forward Pascal Siakam, who finished with 30 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks, and 5 turnovers in 40 minutes, and as he shot 13 for 19 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. And then their starting point guard, Malachi Flynn, would finish with 22 points of his own, alongside 5 rebounds and 2 steals. As he would in 35 minutes, as he shot 8 for 18 from the field and 6 for 13 from 3. For the Atlanta Hawks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard, Bogdan Bogdanovic, who finished with 23 points and 6 rebounds in 40 minutes, as he shot 9 for 18 from the field and 5 for 8 from 3. With this win, the Atlanta Hawks are now 30-25. They are now the 4th team in the Eastern Conference to eclipse the 30-win mark. They've now won. They currently have the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've now won their last 3 games and 7 of their last 10 in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. They now sit 4 games behind the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks, and they currently sit a game ahead of the 5th place Boston Celtics, as they trail the Philadelphia 76ers and Brooklyn Nets by 7.5 games in the conference. And with this loss, the Toronto Raptors are now 21-34. That is the 5th worst record in the Eastern Conference. They've now lost their last 2 games. They've lost 7 of their last 10. And in the Eastern Conference, they currently trail the New York Knicks by 7 games outside of the Eastern Conference playoff picture, the Knicks and the 7th place Hornets. And overall, they trail the 76ers and the Nets by 16.5 games total in the conference. Looking out to Minneapolis, the Minnesota Timberwolves hosted the Brooklyn Nets, as the Nets were able to beat the Timberwolves 127-97 yesterday. In the first half, they would go on to outscore Minnesota by 21 points, which of course would be the difference. And they kind of carried that momentum through the end of the game, as the Timberwolves picked up their NBA leading 41st loss of the season so far. For the Timberwolves in this matchup, their leading scorer would be the number 1 overall pick from last year's draft, Anthony Edwards, who would finish with 27 points and 8 rebounds in 33 minutes, as he shot 8 for 22 from the field and 9 for 12 from the foul line. And off the bench, their elite point guard, D'Angelo Russell, would finish with 15 points in 20 minutes, as he shot 5 for 12 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. For the Brooklyn Nets in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their goated starting power forward, Kevin Durant, who finished with 31 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists in 27 minutes, as the Texas product shot 11 for 15 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. And off the bench, their elite power forward, Blake Griffin, would finish with 4 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists in 24 minutes, as the only shots he would make would be from the foul line. He shot 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Brooklyn Nets are now 37-17. They are now tied with the Philadelphia 76ers for the best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won 7 of their last 10 games. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they and the Sixers sit 3.5 games ahead of the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks, just to give a sense of where they are. And just to give a sense of how far they are at the top, they sit 21 full games ahead of the last place in the Eastern Conference, the Detroit Pistons at the moment. With this loss, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 14-41. That is the worst record in the Western Conference and the worst record in the NBA. They've lost 7 of their last 10 games. They currently sit 14.5 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the Western Conference playoff picture, and they currently trail the first place Utah Jazz by 27 total games in the conference. Just to give a sense of where the Minnesota Timberwolves are at the bottom of the league. Jumping out to Charlotte, the Charlotte Hornets hosted the defending champs Los Angeles Lakers, and the Lakers would pull off a 101-93 win. The big difference coming in the third quarter where they outscored the Hornets by 8. For the Hornets in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, Cody Martin, who finished with 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in 35 minutes, as he shot 7 for 14 from the field on the night. The leading scorer for the Hornets would be their starting point guard, Devontae Graham. I missed him. He finished with 19 points and 6 assists in 31 minutes, as he shot 7 for 19 from the field on the night. And for the defending champs, Los Angeles Lakers, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, Kyle Kuzma out of Utah, who finished with 24 points in 34 minutes, shooting 7 for 18 from the field, 4 for 12 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the defending champs are now 34-21. That is the 5th best record in the Western Conference. They've now won 6 of their last 4 games, or 6 of their last 10 games, considering AD and LeBron have not been there for a lot of them. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they now sit half a game behind the 4th place Denver Nuggets, and they now sit 2.5 games ahead of the 6th place Portland Trailblazers, as they trail the 1st place Utah Jazz by 7 total games in the conference. With this loss, the Charlotte Hornets are now 27-26. That is the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now lost their last 2 games, and they've won 5 of their last 10. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they have 1 less win and 1 less loss in the 8th place New York Knicks, so they sit pretty much even in terms of games back. They currently sit half a game behind the defending Eastern Conference champions, the 6th place Miami Heat, and both these teams currently sit 2 games ahead of the 9th place Indiana Pacers, who are currently on the outside looking in, as the Hornets currently trail the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets by 9.5 games in the conference. Jumping out to Salt Lake City, the Utah Jazz hosted the Oklahoma City Thunder, as the Utah Jazz are able to beat the Thunder 106-96 to pick up their 41st win of the season. Of course, the first team in the NBA to cross that mark. The big difference would come in the second and third quarters. The Jazz would outscore OKC by 11 in the second and then by 17 in the third. 28-point difference in those 2 quarters combined. For the Oklahoma City Thunder in this matchup, their leading scorer will be their starting small forward, Luguentz Dort, who would finish with 42 points and 7 rebounds alongside 4 steals in 37 minutes. He would shoot 16 for 31 from the field, 7 for 11 from 3, and 3 for 7 from the foul line on the night. For the Utah Jazz, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, Bojan Bogdanovic, who finished with 23 points and 7 rebounds in 36 minutes, shooting 6 for 14 from the field and a perfect 10 for 10 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell, would finish with 22 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in 33 minutes, as he shot 7 for 16 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the foul line. Their all-star point guard, Mike Conley, would finish with 15 points, 2 rebounds, and 14 assists alongside 2 steals in 34 minutes, as he shot 5 for 13 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. And their elite starting center, Rudy Gobert, would finish with 13 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 blocks in 34 minutes, as Gobert shot 6 for 7 from the field and 1 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Utah Jazz are now 41-14. That is the best record in the Western Conference and the best record in the NBA. They're the only team in the NBA thus far with at least 40 wins. They've won 7 of their last 10 games, as they currently sit a game and a half ahead of the second place Phoenix Suns. And they currently sit 27 games ahead of the 15th place or last place Minnesota Timberwolves, just to show the differences between the best record and the worst record in the NBA. With this loss, the Oklahoma City Thunder are now 20-34. That is the 3rd worst record in the Western Conference. They have now lost their last 7 games. They are tied with the Sacramento Kings for the worst losing streak, of course, in the NBA at the moment. They've lost 9 of their last 10. They currently sit 8 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the playoff picture, as they sit 20.5 games behind the Utah Jazz in the conference, just to give a sense of where the Thunder are. And then last but not least, jumping to Phoenix, the Phoenix Suns hosted the reigning Eastern Conference champs Miami Heat and were able to pull up a 106-86 win. They would outscore Miami by 14 points in the second quarter and by 9 in the fourth. To really kind of put together, they put together all the momentum after the first quarter, in which they were trailing by 8 to Miami. For the Heat in this matchup, their leading scorer will be their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, who finished with 18 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals in 32 minutes, as he shot 6 for 16 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. And their elite starting center, Bam Adebayo, would finish with 11 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 33 minutes, as Bam shot 4 for 6 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. For the Phoenix Suns in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting center, DeAndre Ayton, their former number 1 overall pick, who finished with 19 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 steals in 27 minutes, as he shot 8 for 10 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker, out of Kentucky, would finish with 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists, alongside 6 turnovers in 23 minutes, as he shot 4 for 16 from the field, 1 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. Also in the starting lineup, their elite starting point guard, 11-time All-Star Chris Paul, would finish with 5 points, 2 rebounds, 9 assists, and 3 steals in 26 minutes, as he shot 2 for 7 from the field and 1 for 3 from 3. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 39-15. That is the second best record in the Western Conference. They've now won their last 3 games, and they've won 9 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they currently sit a game and a half behind the first place Utah Jazz, and they sit 2 games ahead of the third place Los Angeles Clippers, just to show where they are. And with this loss, the Miami Heat are currently 28-26. That is the 6th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've now lost, or with this loss, they've still won 6 of their last 10 games. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they now trail the 5th place Boston Celtics by half a game, and they sit half a game ahead of the 7th place Charlotte Hornets and the 8th place New York Knicks, as they trail the 76ers and Nets by 9 total games in the Eastern Conference, just to give a sense of where they are. Those are all of the basketball games, of course, that were covered yesterday. Looking forward to what's going on today, of course, starting with the prime times at 7 o'clock. The Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets, the 2 holders of the best record in the Eastern Conference, will face off against one another on ESPN in Philadelphia. So, of course, that'll be a very big matchup to watch. And then following that, it'll be a 9:30 matchup between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Dallas Mavericks, the holders of the 7th and the 8th spots in the Western Conference. So, of course, this looks to be very intriguing as well, because both teams are fighting for their playoff position with their very playoff lives, with their regular season lives. Outside of the primetime matchups, at 4:30, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the holders of the NBA's worst record, are going to host the Milwaukee Bucks. At 7 o'clock, the Charlotte Hornets are going to host the Cleveland Cavaliers. At 7:30, the Toronto Raptors are going to host the San Antonio Spurs in Tampa. At 8 o'clock, the Detroit Pistons, the holders of the Eastern Conference's worst record, are going to host the Los Angeles Clippers in the Little Caesars Arena. At the same time, the Chicago Bulls are going to host the Orlando Magic. And the New Orleans Pelicans are going to host the New York Knicks, as Zion Williamson and Julius Randle face off against one another. At 9 o'clock, the Houston Rockets will host the Indiana Pacers, and the Oklahoma City Thunder will host the Golden State Warriors. Last but not least, at 10 o'clock, the Denver Nuggets will host the reigning Eastern Conference champions Miami Heat, and the Sacramento Kings will host the Washington Wizards. But that's currently what the NBA is looking like today. Staying within the arena, but of course shifting the momentum to the ice, looking out to what's going on in the NHL. And of course, I got to lead by saying that they have to play within their own division for the entire season to limit the spread of COVID. Starting in the Eastern Division, The New Jersey Devils hosted the New York Rangers as the Rangers were able to beat the Devils 3-0. Their goalie Shesterkin would blank the Devils completely, and with their 20th win of the season, the New York Rangers now hold the 5th best record in the East Division as they currently trail the Capitals by 14 points so far. Jumping out to Boston, the Bruins beat the Sabres 3-2 in the shootout. And with this win, the Bruins now have 22 wins on the season, and they hold the 4th best record in the East Division as they trail the Capitals by 10. Speaking of the Capitals hosted the Philadelphia Flyers and were able to pull up a 6-1 win after scoring 4 goals in the first period. And with their 28th win of the season, they now hold the best record in the East Division as they currently lead the New York Islanders by 2 total points with 1 more game played thus far. And then that's what the East is looking like. Going north of the border for the only game in the North Division, the Toronto Maple Leafs hosted the Calgary Flames, and the Flames were able to beat the Maple Leafs 3-2 in overtime. And with this win, the Calgary Flames now hold the 5th best record in the North Division as they trail the Maple Leafs by 21 total points in the table. And then jumping out to the Central, the Nashville Predators hosted the Tampa Bay Lightning and were able to pull off a 7-2 win to pick up their 24th win of the season. With this win, the Predators now hold the 4th best record in the Central Division as they trail the Hurricane, the Lightning, and the Panthers by 9 total points. And speaking of the Panthers were able to beat the Stars 3-2 in overtime to jump their way into the 3-way triumvirate for the very top of the Central Division. They now hold 58 points and 1 more game played than the Lightning and 2 more games played than the Hurricanes, and they all sit 9 points ahead of the 4th place Nashville Predators at the moment. Looking at what's going on today for hockey, starting with the primetime matchups, at 7:30, the St. Louis Blues will host the Colorado Avalanche, who currently hold the best record in the West Division. That game will be on NBC Sports Network. And following that, the Los Angeles Kings will host the Las Vegas Golden Knights on NBC Sports Network at 10 o'clock. At 10:30, the San Jose Sharks will host the Anaheim Ducks on ESPN+. And outside of the primetime matchups, the Ottawa Senators will host the Winnipeg Jets at 7 o'clock. At the same time, the Canadiens will host the Calgary Flames. And then earlier in the day at 2 o'clock, the Minnesota Wild will host the Arizona Coyotes, just to give you a sense of what the NHL is looking like. Jumping to the MLB, just to give a sense of how teams are going at the beginning of the season thus far. Starting in Minnesota, the Minnesota Twins hosted the Boston Red Sox. And after scoring both of their runs in the first 2 innings, the Twins would find themselves losing 4-2 in the second half of the game in the last 2 innings, as the Red Sox were able to pull ahead in the 8th and 9th inning from a Bobby Dalbec double and a Rafael Devers home run. For the Minnesota Twins in this matchup, the start would go to their pitcher J.A. Happ, who had allowed 2 earned runs in 4.2 innings pitched as he struck out 3 batters. And the loss would go to their relief pitcher Randy Dobnak. With his loss, he's 0-2 on the season. Their center fielder Byron Buxton would go 2 for 5 with a run on the day, and he was the only player that registered more than 1 hit for the Twins on the day. For the Boston Red Sox, the start would go to Martin Perez, who had allowed 2 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 2 batters. The win would go to Adam Ottavino in relief as he only pitched 1 inning, and with this win, he's now 1-0 on the season. Their elite designated hitter, JD Martinez, would go 0 for 4 on the day. Their third baseman, Rafael Devers, would end up 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 5th home run of the season. And then their right fielder, Hunter Renfroe, would hit his first home run of the season for the Red Sox as he went 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. And their first baseman, Bobby Dalbec, would go 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs as he hit 2 doubles on the day. And with this win, the Boston Red Sox are now 7-3. That is the best record in the American League East, as they now sit 2.5 games ahead of the rest of the teams in the AL East, the Rays, the Yankees, the Orioles, and the Blue Jays at the moment. With this loss, the Minnesota Twins are now 5-5. That is the 3rd best record in the AL Central, as they currently trail the Cleveland Indians by a game at the moment. Jumping out to Phoenix, the Arizona Diamondbacks hosted the Oakland Athletics, and after the Diamondbacks took a 5-0 lead after the first 3 innings. The A's would come back. They would score 6 of their 7 runs in the last 3 innings to pick up their 5th win of the season. For the Arizona Diamondback, the start went to their starting pitcher, Zach Gallen, who had an amazing starting season last year. He would allow 1 earned run in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 8 batters. The loss would go to their relief pitcher, Anthony Swarzak, in relief as he gave up 1 earned run in the 1 inning that he pitched. In their lineup, their second baseman, Eduardo Escobar, would end up going 2 for 4 with a run on the day. Their third baseman, Abdrubal Cabrera, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. And then their catcher, Carson Kelly, would end up going 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs and a run as he had his first home run of the season in the first. For the Oakland Athletics, the start would go to Jesus Luzardo, who allowed 5 earned runs in the 2.2 innings that he pitched. The win would come in relief to Yuzimiro Petit, and with this win, he's now 3-0 on the season as a relief pitcher. Their left fielder, Marcana, would end up going 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run for himself. Their second baseman, Jed Lowry, would go 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run as he had his second home run of the season. Their elite third baseman, Matt Chapman, would go 1 for 5 with an RBI as he struck out 3 times. Their right fielder, Stephen Piscotty, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he had his first home run of the season. And then their catcher, Aramis Garcia, would end up going 2 for 4 with a run for himself. With this win, the Oakland Athletics are now 5-7, which is the 4th best record in the AL West. They currently trail the Los Angeles Angels by 2.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Arizona Diamondbacks are now 4-8. That is the 4th best record in the NL West, as they currently trail the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers by 5.5 games in the division. Now looking out to both of the double headers, starting off in Baltimore, the Baltimore Orioles hosted the Seattle Mariners. In the first matchup, the Mariners would beat the Orioles 4-3 in the 8th inning, because when it's double headers, they play about 7 innings, but they had to go into extra. In this matchup, it would be a Kyle Seager double that gave Seattle the lead, and would give them their 6th on the season. For the Baltimore Orioles in this matchup, the start went to John Means, as Means would allow 3 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 5. The loss would come in relief for the Orioles, as the loss would be tagged to Tanner Scott. He's now 0-1 on the season as a relief pitcher. And their left fielder was able to bring players home. DJ Stewart was able to finish 1 for 2 with an RBI and a run. And then their second baseman, Ramon Urias, would end up going 1 for 2 with 2 RBIs and a run. He had the only home run for the other day for the Orioles, and that was his first home run of the season. For Seattle, the starting pitcher would be Justice Sheffield, who allowed 2 earned runs in 6 innings pitched and he struck out 5 batters. The win would come in relief to Rafael Montero, as he actually blew the save, but he still picked up the win at the very end of the day. With this win, he's now 1-0 on the season as a pitcher. The right fielder, Mitch Haniger, will go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Their second baseman, Ty France, would hit his second home run of the season as he went 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Their catcher, Todd Murphy, would end up going 1 for 3 for himself with an RBI and a run. As Tom Murphy would end up with his first home run of the season for the Seattle Mariners. And with this win, of course, the Mariners picked up their 6th win of the season. And then looking at how it fared after the second matchup, the Orioles would win the second matchup 7-6, as the second game came down to the wire, and it would come down to a walk-off single from Ramon Urias to win the game for the Orioles to give them their 5th of the season. For Seattle, in the second matchup, the start would go to Nick Margevicius, who had allowed 2 earned runs in 3 innings pitched as he struck out 4 batters, and 6 runs were actually scored on his watch, 3 of which he wasn't responsible for. Their designated hitter, Mitch Haniger, would go 3 for 4 with a run on the day. Their first baseman, Jose Marmolejos, would finish 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run as he had his second home run of the season. And then their left fielder, Sam Haggerty, would end up finishing 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs of the day as he had his first home run of the season. And the win, of course, would go to, or looking at how Baltimore pitched, the start went to their starting pitcher, Dean Kramer, who would allow 4 earned runs in 3 innings pitched as he struck out 3 batters. The win would come in relief to their closer, Cesar Valdez, who would allow no earned runs in the 1 inning that he pitched, and he struck out a batter. Their right fielder, Anthony Santander, would go 1 for 2 with an RBI and a run for himself. And then their third baseman, Michael Franco, would end up going 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs and a run for himself. With split wins in this doubleheader, first off, the Baltimore Orioles are now 5-6. That is, they are tied with the Rays, the Yankees, and the Blue Jays for the second best record in the AL East, as they all trail the Boston Red Sox by 2.5 games in the division. And with a win and a loss, the Seattle Mariners are now 6-5. They are tied with the Astros for the second best record in the AL West, as they trail the Los Angeles Angels by a game in the division. Looking out to the doubleheader that took place at Shea Stadium, or the New York Mets hosted the Philadelphia Phillies. In the first matchup, the Mets would beat the Phillies 4-3 as this game went into the 8th inning, and it would be a Jonathan Villar single that would walk it off for the New York Mets to give them their 3rd win of the season. For the Philadelphia Phillies in this matchup, the start went to Chase Anderson, and Chase Anderson would go on to allow 2 earned runs in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 3 batters. The loss for the Phillies would come in relief as it would come to Hector Neris as he blew the save. He allowed 1 earned run and had 2 runs allowed in the .1 inning that he pitched. For Philadelphia, their elite right fielder, Bryce Harper, would go 1 for 3 on the day. Their shortstop, Didi Gregorius and Gene Segura, their middle infielders would go 2 for 4 with an RBI each. For the New York Mets in this matchup, the start would go to Taijuan Walker, and the win would come in relief to Trevor May. With this win, Trevor May is now 1-1 as a starting pitcher. Taijuan Walker would allow 1 earned run in 4.1 innings pitched as he struck out 8 batters. Dustin May would allow no earned runs, but still a run was scored on his watch as he struck out 2 in an inning. For the New York Mets in this matchup, their left fielder Dominic Smith would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. As he hit his 2nd home run of the season. Their elite first baseman Pete Alonso would go 1 for 4 with an RBI for himself. And with this win, like I said, with this win, the Mets picked up their 3rd win. And leading into the 2nd game of the doubleheader, the Mets would end up blanking the Phillies 4-0 to pick up their 4th win of the season, as they went 2-0 yesterday. For the Phillies, in their 2nd loss of the day, the start would go to Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola would allow 3 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 7 batters. With this loss, he's now 0-1 as a starting pitcher on the season. In this game, their elite right fielder Bryce Harper would go 0 for 3 with a strikeout. No one on the team was able to log more than 1 hit. That's how the Phillies were looking yesterday. And for the New York Mets, the start and the win would go to Marcus Stroman out of Duke. Go Duke. He would allow no earned runs and 4 hits in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 3 batters. And then, of course, the game was finished off by Juris Familia to win the game for the Mets. And then in their lineup, their center fielder, Brandon Nimmo, will go 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs on the day for himself. And then their elite first baseman, Pete Alonso, would go 1 for 3. Their elite shortstop, Francisco Lindor, would go 1 for 3 as he walked on the day for himself. And overall, with this win, with both of these wins, the New York Mets are now 4-3. That is currently the best record win percentage wise in the NL East, as they are currently sitting at the top with the Philadelphia Phillies, sitting a game and a half over the 3rd place Miami Marlins at the moment. And like I said, that's currently where both teams are sitting following both wins in this doubleheader from the New York Mets. Looking out to Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Pirates hosted the San Diego Padres and were able to pull up an 8-4 win after scoring 6 of their 8 runs in the first 3 innings. For the Padres in this matchup, the start would go to Blake Snell, who had a no decision after allowing 3 earned runs and not even making it out of the first inning for himself. Like I said, he would not get a decision on this. Their center fielder, Trent Grisham, would finish 1 for 4 with an RBI and 3 runs on the day. Their shortstop, Jake Cronenworth, would go 2 for 5 with a run for himself. Their elite third baseman, Manny Machado, would go 1 for 3 with 2 walks on the day. And then looking out to how the Pittsburgh Pirates fared, their starting pitcher was Chad Kuhl. And Chad Kuhl would go on to allow 3 earned runs and 3.2 innings pitched as he struck out only a batter. The win would come in relief as it would come to Chris Stratton. Chris Stratton would throw 1 inning pitch as he struck out 2 batters on the day. With this win, Chris Stratton is now 1-0 as a relief pitcher. In the lineup for the Pirates, their shortstop, Kevin Newman, would finish 2 for 5 with an RBI and a run. No home runs were hit by the Pirates, by the way. They were driving it all the way around. Their left fielder, Brian Williams, would go 2 for 5 with an RBI and 2 runs for himself. Their catcher, Jacob Stallings, would end up going 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run. And then their third baseman, Eric Gonzalez, would end up going 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run for the day. With this win, the Pittsburgh Pirates are currently 4-7, holding the worst record in the National League Central as they trail the Cincinnati Reds by 3 games in the division. With this loss, the San Diego Padres are now 8-4 as they hold the second best record in the National League West. They currently trail the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers by 1.5 games in the division at the moment. Jumping out to Florida, the Toronto Blue Jays hosted the New York Yankees and were able to pull up a 7-3 win after they scored 6 of their 7 in the second through fifth innings. For the New York Yankees, the start would go to Jamison Taillon. Sorry if I butchered the name. He would allow 3 earned runs and 3.2 innings pitched as he struck out 3 on the day. And with this loss, he's now 0-1 as a starting pitcher. Their elite third baseman, DJ LeMahieu, would go 2 for 3 with a run on the day. Their elite designated hitter, Giancarlo Stanton, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Their elite right fielder, Aaron Judge, would go 0 for 4 with a strikeout on the day. And their center fielder, Aaron Hicks, would go 3 for 4. For Toronto, the win would go to their elite starting pitcher out of Korea, Hyunjin Ryu, who would allow no earned runs, 4 hits, and only 1 run in 6.2 innings pitched as he struck out 7 batters. With this win, Hyunjin Ryu is now 1-1 as a starter. In the lineup, their second baseman, Trevor Siemian, would go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run this is Marcus Semien. Marcus Semien he now has 4 home runs on the season. Their shortstop, Bo Bichette, will go 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs for himself. Their elite first baseman, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., would go 2 for 4 with an RBI. And then their designated hitter, Rowdy Tellez, would hit his first home run of the season as he went 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. With this win, the Toronto Blue Jays are now 5-6, tied with 4 other teams in their division for the second best record, as they are tied with the Rays, the Yankees, and the Orioles for this as they all sit 2.5 games behind the Boston Red Sox in the division. And of course, the Yankees have the same record because I just mentioned the Yankees in that list of teams with the same record. Jumping out to Tampa Bay, speaking of another team in the AL East, the Rays hosted the Tampa Bay Rangers, the Tampa Bay Rays hosted the Texas Rangers, as the Rangers were able to pull off an 8-3 win, scoring 4 of their 8 in the 4th inning. For the Tampa Bay Rays in this matchup, the loss went to their starting pitcher, Ryan Yarbrough, as Ryan Yarbrough would allow 6 earned runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters on the day. With this loss, Yarbrough is 0-2 as a starting pitcher. Their elite right fielder, Randy Arozarena, will go 2 for 3 with 2 runs on the day. Their second baseman, Brandon Lau, will go 2 for 4, and their first baseman, Yandy Diaz, would go 2 for 3 with a run on the day. With an RBI on the day. For the Texas Rangers, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Kyle Gibson, who would allow 1 earned run and 2 runs total in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 3 batters. With this win, Kyle Gibson is now 2-0 as a starting pitcher. Their starting shortstop, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, would go 2 for 5 with an RBI and a run on the day. Their right fielder, Joey Gallo, would go 2 for 5 with an RBI for himself. Their catcher, Jose Trevino, will go 2 for 5 with a run. And then their second baseman, Nick Solak, would finish 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs on the day. And their newest third baseman from Atlanta, Charlie Culberson, would finish 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run as he hit his first home run of the season for Texas. With this win, the Texas Rangers are now 4-7. That is the worst record in the American League West, as they now sit 3 games behind the first place Los Angeles Angels in the division. And with this loss, the Tampa Bay Rays are now 5-6, tied with the Yankees, the Orioles, and the Blue Jays for the second best record in the American League East, 2.5 games behind the first place Boston Red Sox at the moment. Jumping out to Atlanta, the Atlanta Braves hosted the Miami Marlins as the Marlins were able to put up 14 runs to give the Braves their 7th loss of the season. For Atlanta, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Max Fried, who would allow 7 earned runs in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 3 batters on the day. Their elite right fielder, Ronald Acuna Jr., would go 1 for 4 with 2 runs on the day. Their elite first baseman, reigning National League MVP, Freddie Freeman, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs. Their elite left fielder, Marcell Ozuna, would go 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as Marcell Ozuna hit his first home run of the season. Their elite second baseman, Ozzie Albies, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run as Albies would go on to hit his second home run of the season. And for the Miami Marlins, the start will go to Pablo Lopez, who allowed 6 earned runs in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters on the day. The win would come to their relief pitcher, John Curtis, who would allow no earned runs and strike out 2 batters in the 1.2 innings that he pitched. With this win, John Curtis is now 1-0 as a pitcher. In the lineup for the Marlins, their second baseman, Miguel Rojas, would end up going 3 for 6 with an RBI and 2 runs for the day. Their center fielder, Starling Marte, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and 3 runs for himself. Their left fielder, former Atlanta Brave Adam Duvall, would go 4 for 5 with 7 RBIs and 4 runs, as Duvall would end up hitting a double and 2 home runs for himself. Their third baseman, Brian Anderson, would go 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs and a run as he hit his first home run of the season for them. And overall, with this win, the Miami Marlins are now 4-6. That is the 3rd best record in the NL East, as they currently trail the Mets and the Phillies by 1.5 games. And with this loss, the Atlanta Braves are now 4-7. That is the 4th best record in the NL East, as they currently trail the Mets and the Phillies by 2 total games in the division at the moment. Jumping out to Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Brewers hosted the Chicago Cubs, and the Cubs were able to pull off a 3-2 win after they had a 2-run 8th inning off of or a 2-run home run from Wilson Contreras to put them up to give them their 5th win of the season. For the Brewers in this matchup, Brandon Woodruff would get the start as he allowed 1 earned run in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters. He got a no decision because Suter would blow the save and lose the game. And for looking at how their batters performed, for the Brewers, the only player to really drive runs home would be their shortstop, Luis Urias, who would go 1 for 1 with 2 RBIs and a run as he had his first home run of the season in the 2nd inning. For the Chicago Cubs, the start would go to Alec Mills, who allowed 2 earned runs in 4 innings pitched, but the win would go to their relief pitcher, Pedro Strop, who would allow no runs in the 1 innings that he pitched, and he struck out a batter. With this win, Strop is now 1-0, and the save will go to their elite closer, Craig Kimbrell, who struck out 1 batter and allowed no runs in the 1.1 inning that he pitched. He allowed no hits either. In the lineup for the Chicago Cubs, their catcher, Wilson Contreras, would end up going 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his 2nd home run in the 8th. Their first baseman, Anthony Rizzo, would go 2 for 3, and their elite third baseman, Chris Bryant, would go 0 for 3 as he finished with an RBI for himself, and their elite shortstop, Javi Baez, would go 0 for 4 as he would strike out for himself. With this win, the Chicago Cubs are now 5-6. That is the 4th best record in the NL Central. They currently trail the Cincinnati Reds by 2 total games in the division. And with this loss, the Milwaukee Brewers are now 6-5, tied with the St. Louis Cardinals for the 2nd best record in the NL Central. They currently trail the Reds by 1 game. Speaking of the Cardinals hosted the Washington Nationals, the 2009 MLB champs, and were able to pull off a 14-3 win as they scored 9 runs in the 5th inning themselves to pick up their 6th win of the season. For Washington, the start would go to the 2019 World Series MVP Steven Strasburg, who would allow 7 earned runs and 4 innings pitched as he struck out 3 batters on the day. With this loss, he's now 0-1 as a pitcher. And for Washington in their lineup, their elite right fielder Juan Soto would go 1 for 3 with an RBI for himself. Their left fielder Kyle Schwarber would go 2 for 4 with a run on the day. And then their second baseman Josh Harrison would go 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs for himself. For the St. Louis Cardinals, the win would go to their elite starting pitcher Jack Flaherty, who allowed 1 earned run in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters. With this win, Jack Flaherty is now 2-0 as a starting pitcher. In their batting lineup, their right fielder Tommy Edman would end up 2 for 5 with 2 runs. On the day, their elite first baseman Paul Goldschmidt will go 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as Goldschmidt hit his first home run of the season off of Strasburg. Their elite third baseman Nolan Arenado will go 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as Nolan Arenado hit his third home run of the season. Their second baseman Matt Carpenter would go 1 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as Matt Carpenter hit his first home run of the season. And then their center fielder Dylan Carlson would go 3 for 4 with 2 runs. And then their left fielder, Justin Williams, would end up finishing 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run for the day. With this win, the St. Louis Cardinals are now 6-5, tied with the Milwaukee Brewers for the second best record in the NL Central, as they both trail the Cincinnati Reds by a game. And with this loss, the Washington Nationals are now 2-6, with the worst record in the NL East, as they trail the Mets and the Phillies by 2.5 games at the moment. Jumping out to Houston, the Houston Astros hosted the Detroit Tigers as the Tigers were able to pull off an 8-2 win, scoring 7 of their runs in the 3rd through 5th innings within that stretch. For the Houston Astros in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Jake Odorizzi, who would allow 5 earned runs and 3.1 innings pitched as he struck out 4 batters. He's now 0-1 as a starting pitcher. Their elite second baseman, Jose Altuve, would go 1 for 4 on the day. Their elite third baseman, Alex Bregman, would go 1 for 3 as he struck out twice. And then Yordan Alvarez, their designated hitter, and Yuli Gurriel will go 2 for 4 with a run each on the day for the Astros. For the Detroit Tigers, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Matthew Boyd, who allowed 1 earned run and 6.2 innings pitched as he struck out 4 batters. With this win, Matthew Boyd is now 2-1 as a starting pitcher this season. Their third baseman, Jaime Candelario, would finish 2 for 4 with 2 runs for himself. Their catcher, Wilson Ramos, would finish 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs for himself. He hit 2 home runs on the day. He now has 6 on the season. Their third baseman, who would be Nomar Mazara, would end up going 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his second home run of the season. And then Akil Baddoo, their rookie in the spotlight, finished 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run as Akil Baddoo would hit his 4th home run of the season. With this win, the Detroit Tigers are now 5-6. They are tied with the Chicago White Sox for the worst record in the AL Central, as they both trailed the Cleveland Indians by a 1.5 games. And with this loss, the Houston Astros are now 6-5, tied with the Seattle Mariners for the second best record in the AL West. They both trail the Los Angeles Angels by a game at the moment, just to show where they're sitting. Jumping out to Kansas City, the Kansas City Royals hosted the LA Angels and were able to pull up a 3-2 win. And as Duffy picked up his second win of the season. For the Angels, the loss will go to their starting pitcher, Dylan Bundy, who allowed 2 earned runs and 7 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters on the day. With this loss, Dylan Bundy is now 0-1 as a pitcher this season. Their designated hitter, Shohei Ohtani, will go 3 for 5 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 4th home run of the season, a solo shot in the 5th inning. Their goated center fielder, Mike Trout, will go 1 for 5 on the day as he struck out 4 times. Their future Hall of Famer, Albert Pujols, will go 2 for 4. Same with their shortstop, Jose Iglesias. And then their catcher, Kurt Suzuki, would end up going 2 for 2 with an RBI on the day. For the Kansas City Royals, the win, of course, will go to their starting pitcher, Danny Duffy, who allowed 1 earned run in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters on the day. With this win, Danny Duffy is now 2-0 as a pitcher, and the save went to Greg Holland as Greg Holland picked up his first save of the season. Their elite second baseman, Whit Merrifield, will go 2 for 4 with 2 runs on the day. Their elite catcher, Salvador Perez, would go 2 for 4 as he finished with an RBI. And their first baseman, Carlos Santana, would go 0 for 3 as he finished with 2 RBIs on the day for Kansas City. With this win, the Kansas City Royals are now 5-4. They hold the second best record in the AL Central as they trail the Cleveland Indians by half a game in the division. And with this loss, the Los Angeles Angels still sit at the very top of the AL West with a 7-4 record as they are sitting one game ahead of the Astros and the Seattle Mariners at the moment. Jumping out to Chicago, the Chicago White Sox hosted the Cleveland Indians as the Indians were able to beat the White Sox 2-0. Both runs would come in the 10th inning as Roberto Perez and Ahmed Rosario would end up with both RBIs on the day, as Shane Bieber would pitch 9 innings and pick up the win for the Cleveland Indians on the day. For the Chicago White Sox, the start went to Lucas Giolito, who would allow no earned runs and 3 hits in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 8 batters. He got a no decision as the loss would come in relief to Garrett Crochet, who allowed 2 runs in 1 inning or 0.1 innings pitched. But for Chicago, the only one of the players who was able to log a hit was their elite first baseman, former American League MVP Jose Abreu, who went 1 for 3 with a walk. He had 1 of the 3 hits on the day for Chicago. For Cleveland, the win would go to their elite starting pitcher Shane Bieber, the winner of last year's American League Cy Young and last year's American League Triple Crown winner. He would allow no earned runs on 3 hits allowed in 9 innings pitched as he only walked 1 batter and struck out 11. With this win, Shane Bieber is now 1-1 as a starting pitcher, and James Karinchak as a relief pitcher was able to pick up his first save of the season. Their elite third baseman, Jose Ramirez, would go 2 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Their left fielder, Eddie Rosario, will go 2 for 4 himself. And there's catcher Roberto Perez and their pinch hitter Ahmed Rosario would finish with an RBI each. And with this win, the Cleveland Indians are now 6-4, sitting on top of the AL Central with the best record. And with this loss, the Chicago White Sox are now 5-6. They are tied with the Detroit Tigers for the worst record in the AL Central, as both of these teams currently trail the Indians by 1.5 games. Jumping out to San Francisco, the San Francisco Giants hosted the Cincinnati Reds and were able to pull up a 7-6 win, as coming out of this game, both teams had a 7-4 record. For the Cincinnati Reds in this matchup, their starting pitcher would be Luis Castillo, who would allow 4 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 7 batters. He would get no decision as the loss would be tied to Cionel Perez, as he only pitched 0.1 inning, but he would get tagged for the loss. The right fielder, Nick Castellanos, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Their future Hall of Fame first baseman, Joey Votto, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his second home run of the season. Their third baseman, Mike Moustakas, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run himself as he hit his second home run of the season. For San Francisco, the start went to Kevin Gausman, who allowed 5 earned runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 7 batters. The win would come in relief to Wandy Peralta, who would allow 1 earned run in 1 inning pitched. But with this win, even though he blew the save, he's now 2-1 as a relief pitcher. Their second baseman, Tommy La Stella, will go 3 for 3 as he finished with a run. Their right fielder, Mike Yastrzemski, would end up going 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run himself. Their third baseman, former American League MVP Evan Longoria, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs for himself, as Longoria would hit his 4th home run of the season. And with this win, the San Francisco Giants are now 7-4. That is the 3rd best record in the NL West, as they currently trail the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers by 2 total games. And with this loss, the Cincinnati Reds are now 7-4. They still hold the best record in the NL Central, as they sit a game ahead of the St. Louis Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers at the moment. Last but not least, jump into Los Angeles. The defending champs hosted the Colorado Rockies and were able to pull up a 7-0 win, as they were able to get a great performance from their elite starting pitcher and former National League Cy Young winner Trevor Bauer. For the Colorado Rockies in this matchup, the start would go to Antonio Senzatella, who would allow 4 earned runs in 2.2 innings pitched as he struck out 2 batters on the day. And only one player for Colorado was able to log more than one hit, as Garrett Hampson, their center fielder, would go 2 for 4 on the day. Their elite right fielder, Charlie Blackmon, would go 0 for 2 as he walked and struck out. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, the win would go to their elite starting pitcher, Trevor Bauer, who would only allow 1 hit in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 9 batters on the day. With this win, Trevor Bauer is now 2-0 as a starting pitcher. Their elite right fielder, Mookie Betts, would go 1 for 5 with an RBI and a run. Their elite shortstop, Corey Seager, would go 2 for 3 with an RBI and a run and a walk as he hit his first home run of the season. Chris Taylor, their center fielder, would go 2 for 5 with an RBI and a run as he hit his second home run of the season. Going back to Mookie, his only hit of the day was his second home run. Their first baseman, Max Muncy, would go 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run for himself. And with this win, the Los Angeles Dodgers are 9-2. That is the best record in the entire National League and the entire MLB, really, for that matter. In the division, they currently sit a game and a half ahead of the second place San Diego Padres. With this loss, the Colorado Rockies are now 3-8, holding the worst record in the division as they currently trail the defending champs by 6 total games as of right now. And with that said, that's virtually everything that's going on with baseball as of yesterday. Leading into today, starting off with the primetime matchups to look forward to, because of course today is Wednesday and there's a lot of baseball games going on as a lot of series are wrapping up. On ESPN Plus, the only game will be at 7:20 as the Atlanta Braves will host the Miami Marlins as Nick Neidert and Charlie Morton are facing off against one another. Outside the primetime matchups, at 1:07, the Blue Jays are going to host the New York Yankees as Corey Kluber looks to get his first win. At 1:15, the St. Louis Cardinals will host the Washington Nationals as Adam Wainwright will host Joe Ross. Joe Ross had a good first start in his when he played last. At 1:40, the Milwaukee Brewers are going to host the Chicago Cubs as Jake Arrieta looks to get his third win for Chicago. At 2:10, the Kansas City Royals will host the Los Angeles Angels as the Angels currently hold the best record in the AL West. At 2:10, it'll be the first game of a doubleheader between the Minnesota Twins and the Boston Red Sox as Kenta Maeda will face off against Nate Eovaldi. Right now, the Boston Red Sox are currently holding the best record in the AL East. And the second game of this doubleheader will be at 5:10, as this one will be between Eduardo Rodriguez and Jose Berrios. At 3:15, it'll be 3:45. The San Francisco Giants will host the Cincinnati Reds at Oracle Park as Tyler Mahle faces off against Johnny Cueto. At 6:35, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the holders of the worst record in the NL Central, are going to host the San Diego Padres as Joe Musgrove is now 2-0 and still has yet to allow an earned run this season. At 7:05, the Baltimore Orioles are going to host the Seattle Mariners as Justin Dunn and Matt Harvey look for their first wins of the season. At 7:10, the Houston Astros are going to host the Detroit Tigers, or the Mets are going to host the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Tampa Bay Rays are going to host the Texas Rangers, all three happening at the same time. At 8:10, the Chicago White Sox are going to host the Cleveland Indians as Zach Plesac and Carlos Rodon each look to pick up their second win of the season. And last but not least, at 10:10, the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers are going to host the Colorado Rockies as the Dodgers are currently 4-0 at home at the moment. But that's everything that's going on with baseball. Looking really closely at CONCACAF Champions League before I leave just the continent of North America. Looking at the two MLS teams that played yesterday. Atlanta United was able to beat Alajuelense 1-0 to win the aggregate 2-0, so they get to advance to the next round. And the Portland Timbers were able to beat Marathon 5-0 as Chara would finish with a hat trick himself. And then looking at to what's going on in Europe, the quarterfinals it was the first day of the second leg of quarterfinal play in Champions League. In the first matchup, Bayern Munich, the reigning champions of the Bundesliga, were able to beat PSG 1-0. Their only goal came off of a header from former PSG backup striker Eric Choupo-Moting. But since the aggregate was tied up at 3 and PSG scored 3 away goals to Bayern's 1, PSG will advance to the semifinals of the Champions League on away goals. So, of course, that would strengthen the number of teams in the Champions League from 8 to 7. And at the same time, Porto was able to beat Chelsea 1-0, but since Chelsea leads 2-1 on aggregate, Chelsea will be the team that advances to the next round. And then looking forward to what's going to be going down today in terms of Champions League. Going into today, there's 6 teams remaining, and by the end of the day, there will be 4. At 3 o'clock, the first matchup will be between Borussia Dortmund and Manchester City. Manchester City currently leads 2-1 on aggregate. The winner of this matchup will face off against PSG in the Champions League semifinal, and it'll be game 2 between Liverpool and Real Madrid, as Real Madrid currently lead this matchup 3-1 on aggregate after winning the last one at home. So this matchup will be at Liverpool, and the winner of this aggregate matchup will face off against Chelsea in the Champions League semifinal. Looking at CONCACAF Champions League, it looks as though the only MLS team that's going to be playing, there are 2 teams playing. Toronto FC are going to face off against Leon, as they are currently tied 1-1 on aggregates, and Philadelphia Union will face off against Saprissa, as Philadelphia Union currently lead 1-0 on aggregate at the very moment. But right now, that is what soccer is looking like. That is what sports are looking like today on Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. I want to thank everyone once again for listening. 12:59 minutes, 1 hour of this piece. I hope all is well. And once all of today's exhibitions are done, I will come back to you tomorrow, Thursday, April 15th, with more. And with that said, thanks again for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with an elite profile after this, and of course, a daily episode tomorrow. Thanks once again, and peace out. I'm James Sims, and this is The Elite.